Hey everybody, it's your old buddy, Uncle Rich, the truth detector. And guys, this is show number 273. Today's date is August 5th, 2019. And the name of the show, nice job, Kurt, is Profiting from Pain. And guys, what we're going to talk about tonight, I was talking to Uncle Joey, my good buddy Uncle Joey, who put in my bathroom 30 years ago. I had a problem, so I had to call him for some help, and one word led to another, and I said, Uncle Joey, I said, what's more important to you, the profits of the insurance companies or your health care? And guys, when you say something like that to somebody, they don't have a choice. They have to say, of course, my health care is more important. So I said, Joey, on tonight's show, I'll put up a clip from Elizabeth Warren, and I'll explain her plan. But guys, the Koch brothers, the guys that bought the government, actually had their Meratus Center do an actual report on Medicare for all. And guys, I tell you, when the Republicans find out that they actually agree that Medicare for all is beneficial monetarily to everybody in the country, people like Fox News aren't going to be happy campers. But guys, speaking of Fox News, this is the third week in a row that Chris Wallace has gone out of his way to, I guess the best thing to say is to badger a representative from the Trump administration. And guys, I'm telling you, Chris Wallace stuck to his guns. He didn't let this guy get away. And like I said, this is the third week in a row. The first week he went after Stephen Miller. And then after that, he went after, I forget. But anyway, I'll come back to it. But so guys, we're going to start off with Chris Wallace. And, it was Mick Mulvaney that he gave the business to last week. And we're going to go with Chris Wallace. And I didn't write down the name of the guy who he's talking with. But, when we get to the full-length clips, his name will be there. And I apologize. But anyway, so Kurt, let's have number 2. And let's watch how Chris Wallace takes no prisoners anymore. Number 2, please.
The yellow line shows that the consumer price of tariff goods has risen dramatically since the president started imposing them. The blue line, which is non-tariff goods, the cost of them has fallen.
That's the
Trump Labor Department, Peter, saying on a macro and micro level that tariffs cause consumer prices to rise.
Okay, I thought that chart stayed up, Kurt. That's okay, because we're going to see more of that chart. But guys, you could see, as plain as the nose on my face, when Trump imposed the tariffs, look what happened. Like a rocket it took. And guys, did you see what happened to the Dow today? At one point, it was down almost 1,000 points. Why? Because Trump doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And we're going to explain more about the tariffs and who's paying them with clip number 3. And listen how the guy says, well, the Labor Department data, like he doesn't know who the Labor Department is. So Kurt, number 3, please.
I haven't seen that Labor Department data. I'll go look at it. But what I can tell you is all the data I've seen says that
that's your own Trump Labor Department, sir.
It's not mine. It's the Department of Labor and your stats. I'll look at them. But my point here
is it's the Trump administration.
Yes.
The Department of Labor. So are you going to argue with the Department of Labor? Of course. Why? because you're a Trump loyalist. You have to. You don't have a choice. And let's prove my point with what the real cost is. And I love how a free lunch gets thrown in there. But what we really want is a better discussion. So Kurt, number 4, please.
The point is you're saying I don't have to pay anything, that it's a free lunch, and I don't believe it is a free lunch. I believe, in fact, there is a cost to it, and maybe we would have a better discussion if we discussed what the real cost is.
What the real cost is. And see, guys, what he was trying to do is he's trying to say that the tariffs aren't going to cost the working guy a penny. And we're going to show tonight how that's not true and how some people have been deceived and tricked. And guys, this is all about Alex Azar and selling out Medicare, but of course he wants to imply that you're going to, if we have Medicare for all, it's going to end up as Medicare for none. And guys, he used to be the CEO for Eli Lilly. And I tell you, we're going to rip them a new one tonight. So Kurt, number 5, please.
One thing that we're learning as the advocates of Medicare for all keep talking about Medicare for all is that it means Medicare for none, and it means taking private insurance away from people.
Medicare for none and taking private insurance away from people. And like I said at the beginning of the show, what's more important to you? The profits of the insurance companies or putting that money back into the system where we all benefit from it? And guys, you know, there's one guy who won't take any prisoners, and our buddy Bernie is going to explain that over 20 years, how the lobbyists have pumped $4 billion into tricking the simple folk like Kenny Johnson and all of the Republicans about Canada and importing drugs from Canada. So Kurt, number 6, please.
Maybe that has something to do with the fact that over the last 20 years, the pharmaceutical industry has put $4 billion into lobbying and campaign contributions, which, as you indicate, has hit both political parties. Bottom line is, tell me that you do not believe that we can import safe, lower-cost prescription drugs from Canada.
Bernie, he doesn't have to say a word. We'll do the talking for him. And guys, when you find out the difference in the prices, you're going to go, you got to be kidding me. No, we're not kidding. That's why the name of the show is Who's Telling the Truth? So anyway, the next clip, once again, is going to be Bernie with collusion, corruption, and greed. And this is once again in Canada. So Kurt, number 7, please.
Number 1, the incredible greed of the pharmaceutical industry.
Of
Three
the
major manufacturers of insulin, and they control 90% of the market.
We're going to show you how they do it.
Just coincidentally, it seems that they raised their prices at about the same rate at the same time.
Coincidentally.
And the prices, Quinn, have gone up how much over the last many years?
20 years, it's gone up 1,200%.
Hard to believe,
1,200%, just coincidentally. All right? It is collusion, it is corruption, and it is greed.
It's collusion, it's corruption, and it's greed. Oh my. Collusion, corruption, and greed. Guys, I'm sorry, I had to do it. But I mean, it's almost like, you know, when you listen to some of these proposals that you hear from the Republican Party, it's like you're in the land of Oz. You know, you're in an alternate universe, alternate facts, and we're going to get to some of them. Wait, we're going to have a lot of fun. But guys, Vice, and I got to give credit to Vice, they really should get credit for bringing this show, because I watched the one video from them and I said, wow, this is hard to believe. but they got me going because they went to Mexico. So virtually what Bernie did in Canada, they did in Mexico. And guys, when you see this, you're going to flip. When you see the difference just crossing the border can make. So Kurt, let's have number 8, please.
So a lot of people ask, oh, what's it like buying insulin from another country? But I know this is like going to come as a real shock to everyone, but people in Mexico have diabetes too and also need insulin. The formulas are the same. They're made by the same drug manufacturers. It's just cheaper.
See, guys, and that's one of the big concerns. But the manufacturers are the same. And when you find out there's only virtually 3 of them, it's kind of hard to mix stuff up. But we'll get to that. And then, you know, a lot of times you wonder. You say, where's the money going? You know, if the drugs are so expensive, where's the money going? So we'll give you a little teaser clip now with number 9. Kurt, hit it.
But the real headline here, Connell, is that they are still giving rebates, but the rebates are going into the pockets of the middle managers, the pharmacy benefit managers, the insurance companies, who's ever negotiating prices with these drug makers are still getting discounts, but they're not yet being passed along to the consumer. So
the pharmacy benefit managers. Have you ever heard of that, guys? Have you? No, but guess what? They get a piece of the action, and we're going to show that to you. So, and then the next clip. This is the one girl that one of the 4 horsemen that the conservatives hate so much, and this is in regard to her with Chris Cuomo and talking about Medicare for all. So Kurt, number 10, please.
You know, in a Koch brothers funded study, if any study is going to try to be a little bit slanted, it would be one funded by the Koch brothers. It shows that Medicare for all is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now.
A Koch brothers study. The guys that bought the government had a study done, and guess who wants to thank them? Bernie. So Kurt, number 11.
Depending on income, an individual may pay a little bit more in taxes to finance Medicare for all, but they will save thousands of dollars each and every year because they will no longer be paying insurance company premiums, deductibles, or co-payments to the private for-profit companies that now run our healthcare system.
So once again, you know, with Medicare for all, you're going to be financing yourself, but you're going to be doing it with a super group. And guys, as we go on, the further we go, the more you're going to like it. So our last clip is with Elizabeth Warren on the floor of the Senate, and I want to tell you, she rips Alex Azar a new one. So Kurt, number 12, please.
Eli Lilly was still under investigation when you left government service and went straight to work for Eli Lilly. And then, as the company's top spokesman, you helped manage the fallout in 2009 when the company was forced to pay the largest criminal fine ever imposed in a prosecution like this, more than $500 million. At that time, Eli Lilly's CEO said, quote, "Doing the right thing is non-negotiable at Eli Lilly." Do you think that settlement represented adequate accountability for Eli Lilly's criminal behavior?
All right. So guys, I tell you, when she gets him, when you see that interview on the floor of the Senate, she takes no prisoners. But now we're going to go back to the beginning with Chris Wallace. And guys, I apologize for not knowing the name of the guy he interviewed. But we're going to find out with clip number 23. So Kurt, Part 1, hit it.
Reduction in the prices charged by Chinese exporters, and here's your
give me a chance here to respond.
I am. I'm trying. Wait a minute.
The Fed out,
I understand why you would want to interrupt.
Out.
Let me simply put up the number. Sure. Put that up again, please, Robin. Thank you. Look at this chart from the Trump Labor Department. That shaded area is the period of time since the president in early 2018 started imposing tariffs.
The
yellow line shows that the consumer price of tariff goods has risen dramatically since the president started imposing them. The blue line, which is non-tariff goods, the cost of them has fallen. That's the Trump Labor Department, Peter, saying on a macro and micro level that tariffs cause consumer prices to rise.
So let's take them one at a time and do me the courtesy of not interrupting
Please,
me. Let's start with the Federal Reserve. I find it ironic that Jay Powell of the
Peter
Fed would come
Navarro.
on and blame trade tensions when in fact Jay Powell is singularly responsible for losing at least a point of growth on our GDP by raising interest rates by 100 basis points and engaging in what's called quantitative tightening. He cost us over a point of growth, and here's why. Higher interest rates suppress investment directly, and they indirectly suppress exports by raising the currency.
I'm going to move you along because I took one sentence to talk about Jay Powell, Goldman Sachs. What's your response to that?
My point would, look, the Fed is the single greatest obstacle right now to strong growth in America. We had a 25% basis point cut.
Okay.
And we had an
we can talk about the Fed.
Goldman
I'd rather
Sachs.
talk about tariffs.
You want to talk about Goldman
Sachs? No, I'd like to talk.
Let's do Goldman Sachs. Now let's be clear about Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs is the Wall Street firm that has been responsible for helping the export of millions and millions of manufacturing jobs off.
Here we go.
And what about the Trump Labor Department?
And Goldman Sachs helped shut down over 70,000 factories. I haven't seen that Labor Department data. I'll go look at it. But what I can tell you is all the data I've seen.
All the data you've seen. And here we go again. What data are you seeing? Is it provided by Fox? Who's providing? What's your sources? You would think that he'd want to use the Department of Labor. But no. And he's Trump's trade advisor. Well, if he was any kind of advisor, you think he would have told Trump this on Sunday, hey, listen, Buster, you better get your fat ass out of the market because we're going to take a nosedive tomorrow. You think he would have said that? I don't know. You see how the game is rigged, guys? You see how all these guys play to a different tune? The tune of money. And we're going to put a little more salt in the wound with part number 2 with Chris Wallace. So, Kurt, 24, please.
I haven't seen that Labor Department data. I'll go look at it. But what I can tell you is all the data I've seen says that
that's your own Trump Labor Department, sir.
It's not mine. It's the Department of Labor and your stats. I'll look at them. But my point here is
it's the Trump administration.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got a couple of minutes left. Can I move on?
Sure, you can.
Okay. What do you think are the chances that China will keep this trade war going until after the 2020 election to see who's elected?
I think what's important now, Chris, is that we continue the negotiating process. Bob Lighthizer and Steve Mnuchin went to Shanghai. We were planning on having the Chinese come in September. I think the best thing to do is negotiate behind closed doors and not get caught up in the hype.
What do they have to do? Obviously, the reason, let me just finish, the reason that the president announced this new round of tariffs was because there was no progress in Shanghai. What do they have to do to get the tariffs eliminated?
The 7 deadly sins here, basically. It's stop stealing our intellectual property, stop forcing technology transfer, stop hacking our computers to steal our trade secrets, stop dumping into our markets and putting our companies out of business, stop their state-owned enterprises from heavy subsidies, stop the fentanyl, stop the currency manipulation. These are all structural changes.
One last question, and we got about a minute left. And
you would agree that those are harmful to this economy. And
I would absolutely agree.
So
I
then
would
the
absolutely
question is,
agree.
how much as a consumer would you be willing to pay tomorrow to have that stopped if there were consumer impacts?
My only question to you, sir.
No.
I'm answering.
That's a reasonable question.
I understand. First of all, I
How
get to
much
ask the
would you
questions.
pay?
The point is, you're saying I don't have to pay anything, that it's a free lunch. And I don't believe it is a free lunch. I believe, in fact, there is a cost to it. And maybe we would have a better discussion if we discussed what the real cost
We're
is.
sitting here in a 10-minute interview and you spend 9 minutes on consumer price index and you let the Chinese get a free lunch basically on all the kinds of economic aggression they engage in. What I'm telling you
So let me ask you one last question in the 30 seconds I have left. Given the fact, particularly fentanyl, and I'm particularly sensitive to that the President Xi said to his face in Osaka, we're going to stop the shipment of fentanyl that kills Americans, and they didn't. Why does the president keep calling President Xi such a good man and a good friend?
Because he values the relationships he has with world leaders, and he believes that through those relationships we'll get to a better
Even somebody that's
negotiation.
allowing goods to come through, drugs to come through that kill Americans?
So you can go down that route. President Trump values his relationships with world leaders around the world. He views that as an important way to have negotiations. But the bigger issue here is China, and we have bipartisan support for our China policy. The American public support this president. I hope we can rise above partisan politics on this and also do things like pass the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement.
We will talk about that another time. It's always interesting to have you here, always spirited. Come back and we'll discuss the rest of the trade relationship.
I'm glad you're such a comparison shopper.
Comparison shopper? I'm
on prices.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I just think
somebody do your shopping for you, Chris.
When there's a price that is paid, let's talk about it, and let's not pretend there's no price.
Just try to leave on a light note. And,
okay.
China's paying the burden of the
Peter, thank you. Thanks for coming in today.
All right, so guys, you see Chris Wallace can play hardball and ask the hard questions, but now we're going to, and you know, of course he works for Fox News, works for Fox. I don't want to call them news because they're not news, they're propaganda. So I just call them Fox. But, you know, now we're going to show you Alex Azar. So we showed you how Chris Wallace could be so hard. And now we're going to show you how Stuart Barney can be such an ass kisser. And guys, that's the only way I can put it. Only thing I could say. And when you watch the interview, you'll agree. Because watch, it's like they're best friends. He doesn't challenge him at all. He gives him the old Kenny Johnson routine. So, Kurt, number 25, please.
Mr. Secretary, they're all dancing around that expression, Medicare for all. Would you just give us your succinct opinion on Medicare for all?
Well, obviously, without commenting on the candidates or anything, I'll just tell you, one thing that we're learning as the advocates of Medicare for all keep talking about Medicare for all is that it means Medicare for none, and it means taking private insurance away from people. So one thing that has come out from those, from people discussing Medicare for all, there's this option that people keep talking about that's a Medicare buy-in that says, oh, we won't force everyone to go on Medicare. We'll just offer a Medicare plan, a public option that people could buy into. I think the really revealing thing that's come about from the discussions is the advocates of those Medicare buy-in are now conceding that it eventually leads to Medicare for all, that it will crowd out private insurance, union insurance, that everybody eventually gets on Medicare. So it simplifies the discussion here that it really, whatever you're saying, it ends up being Medicare for all. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's 10 years from now, but they're going to take away your private insurance. They're going to undermine Medicare. And that's what President Trump is saying he will not let happen. He will not let Medicare be undermined for our 60 million seniors. He will not let the private insurance that people have through their employer or through their union plans for 180 million people, he won't let that be undermined or taken away. And he's going to create options and choice for those who are in the individual market. That's what we're doing. That's the competing vision of healthcare, of personalized, affordable, patient-centric, that puts you in control of your own healthcare, treats you like a human being and not a number.
Short, sharp, and to the point. HHS Secretary Alex Azar. Good to see you back again, Mr. Secretary, and I hope to see you again real soon. Thank you.
Notice how he didn't challenge him on anything? He just let him ramble, and he let him get away with Medicare for none, because that's what they want to sell, and they're going to take away your private insurance. And like I said at the beginning of the show when I talked to Uncle Joey, I said, what's more important? The profits of the insurance company, or you having health care? And here we go. But guys, now we're going to show you the same Alex again, but this time the interview is with Bernie. So get ready. This is going to be one of those smoke if you got a moments. So Kurt, 26, please.
Have you guys done a study yet as to how many thousands of people die each year because we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs?
I haven't seen a study on that question.
You haven't seen a study on that either. What have you seen? This guy's unbelievable. Well, we'll straighten him out.
We all agree that drug prices are too high and out-of-pocket expenses are too
All right,
high.
you do a study for me, and if my guess would be that if we get letters, and I'm sure every senator does, from people who are struggling with cancer, among other life-threatening diseases, they can't afford the medicine. I would guess that thousands of people die each year. Do you think that's something you might want to look at?
I don't think it would change our commitment to fix this issue. We are firmly because we're firmly committed to reducing drug pricing and out-of-patient costs.
I know you are.
Nothing would change the firmness
of
that
commitment. You ought to lower prices. During his campaign for President, Trump made a lot of statements to the American people which turned out to be lies. He told the American people during his campaign that he allowed consumers access to, quote, imported, safe, and dependable drugs from overseas, end of quote. Why has he changed his mind on that, do you think?
He hasn't changed his mind at all, and as you even said, we support, if it could be done safely. We will never jeopardize American
But that's what every
safety
administration has, of course. We all
Democrat and Republican have said.
You're absolutely correct. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that over the last 20 years, the pharmaceutical industry has put $4 billion into lobbying and campaign contributions, which, as you indicate, has hit both political parties. Bottom line is, tell me that you do not believe that we can import safe, lower-cost prescription drugs from Canada.
One would have to actually wire the safe, and the Canadian system has a safe Canadian drug distribution system internally for Canadians. You would have to wire that system into the American safe drug distribution system without any leakage or opportunity for invasion of that into that.
You know, you're going to go out for lunch soon, I guess, and you're going to have some salad, and maybe the lettuce comes from Mexico. I always have a hard time understanding how we can safely, quote-unquote, import fish, poultry from all over the world. And somehow from a highly developed country on our border, we cannot figure out a way to bring those products back into this country.
So you're going to go out and have lunch? You're going to go out and have lettuce, fish, stuff grown in Mexico? And you're not worried about the safety of those products, but you're worried about the profits of the of big pharma, of the drug companies. And I wanted to. Bernie's great, isn't he? I tell you, Bernie is terrific. And this caused Bernie to take a road trip. So off they went to Canada. So first we'll go north, and then we're going to go south. So Kurt, head us north, please. 27. Windsor,
It feels
Ontario.
like you're robbing the pharmacy.
What did you end up paying, $36?
$36, but far cry from $340.
Look at the difference,
I think so.
guys.
All right,
Almost
good.
10 times
This year,
more.
Novolog for us costs $487 a month. And here, we're going to pay between $30 and $36 for this vial of insulin. So $720 for 6 months of insulin.
What the hell is going on?
$720 would not buy us 1 month of insulin. We're saving $10,000 today.
So they are paying here less than 1/10 of what they're paying in Indiana.
Yes.
At a time when the manufacturers of insulin made $14.5 billion in profit last year. Now, why do our people pay far more for prescription drugs than people in other countries?
Greed.
Why are there no restrictions on what a drug company can charge? And why is it that tomorrow the medicine that you use may be doubled or tripled in price?
Greed.
So as Americans, what we have got to ask ourselves is how come the same exact medicine, in this case insulin, is sold here in Canada for 1/10 of the price that it is sold in the United States?
Greed.
And it has everything to do with two factors. Number one, the incredible greed of the pharmaceutical industry. The three major manufacturers of insulin, and they control 90% of the market. And just coincidentally, it seems that they raised their prices at about the same rate at the same time. And the prices, Quinn, have gone up how much over the last many years?
20 years, it's gone up 1,200%.
1,200%, just coincidentally. All right? It is collusion, it is corruption, and it is greed.
People always say, oh, you're being too vocal. I don't feel I'm being vocal enough. We are not being vocal enough. When is enough enough? I mean, how many more? Louder. Yeah, we got to get louder. How many kids are going to have to make the sacrifice and die? Think how many had died because of this. I could have lost my son because of insurance and because of pharmaceutical, because of greed. I think, how can you sleep at night knowing that kids can't afford insulin? How is that possible?
Look, at the end of the day, it is an embarrassment for those of us who are Americans. We love our Canadian neighbors, and we thank them so much. But we should not have to come to Canada to get the medicine we need for our kids to stay alive. We can do that in America. But what we need is a Congress and a president who is going to take on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry.
More than 30 million Americans have diabetes and 1 million new cases are diagnosed each year. That's a wake-up call, isn't it? And guys, I tell you, you know, you look at what's going on and you see what Bernie's able to do. And, you know, so he went on the northern road trip. Now we're going to go on the southern road trip, and you're going to find the savings are almost as prolific. But guys, once again, I want to thank Vice for, you know, this was up on my YouTube. I clicked on it, and I want to tell you, so, you know, what's, I always like to give Uncle Joey the business. And I say, now that Trump is going to find out that Uncle Rich is onto him and the high drug prices, you're going to see things happen, and the drug prices are going to fall. I'm telling you. Right, Uncle Joe? I love giving him the business. All right, so anyway, now we're going to go on the southern road trip. So, Kurt, number 28A, please.
When was the last time you went 15, 20 minutes without thinking about diabetes?
When I was 8 years old.
Yeah, 5 years, 6 years ago.
Constant presence.
Yeah.
Like 1.25 million Americans, Lauren and Louise are type 1 diabetics. How long have you been a diabetic?
21 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I was diagnosed in 1998. I was 9 at the time.
How long have you had it?
Going on about 4 years. I was diagnosed in my 50s with type 1 diabetes.
Lauren has become an advocate for diabetics, working with the nonprofit T1 International. Her family lost their insurance soon after she was diagnosed.
Before I moved out of the house, my family was just always scrambling. We would get enough insulin for 1 month and then start planning again for the next month. We went to Canada a few times to get insulin and kind of stocked up there. I would get expired samples from my endocrinologist. And sometimes we would just meet people that had extra insulin because they were insured and would be willing to share some with us.
In 2007, the list price of 5 pens of Humalog, a common brand of insulin, was $147. By 2013, it had doubled in price to $295. And by 2017, it had almost doubled again. Before an insured diabetic meets their deductible, they would pay $530. There's another option. You can join the estimated 1 million American medical tourists who flock to Mexico every year for cheaper prescription drugs. Lauren does this regularly. Louise has never been. And I was interested in purchasing insulin too. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes soon after my 28th birthday.
Speak of the devil, huh?
Shall we go get some
Here
insulin?
they go.
Let's go to Mexico.
The land of Oz. Oh, that's the pearly gate, huh? I always wondered what the pearly gate looked like. Huh? Tijuana.
So
what else
I
can
saw
you
on
get
the internet
there?
that there are a bunch of these big ones that basically advertise for Americans.
Yeah, yeah.
And the websites are in English, and they say, come, we'll take your money.
Yes.
Your healthcare system's
Come,
terrible.
we'll take your money.
And
Of
we're going to go
course.
find those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So Lauren, we're sure all of the insulin is actually insulin.
Yes. So a lot of people ask, oh, what's it like buying insulin from another country? But I know this is like going to come as a real shock to everyone, but people in Mexico have diabetes too and also need insulin. The formulas are the same. They're made by the same drug manufacturers. It's just cheaper.
All right, so guys, in the next clip, now they're going to show you the monetary savings. And when you see this, it's going to be as dramatic, if not more so, than what Bernie found in Canada. So Kurt, number 28B, please.
You sell insulin. We do. Right? Okay. What do you need? Do you want to?
So yeah, okay, I'll need, do you have vials, Humalog vials, or just the pens?
We have the pens.
Okay.
All right, so it comes one in a box, and it sells, I think, $17
For one pen.
for one pen.
I can get a pen of this for $17?
$17.
So what?
Do you know of any apartments in Tijuana that I can rent?
The Novolog, right now, I'm paying $37.
You pay $37 for the Novolog.
My copay.
It's your copay. So this is cheaper than your copay. So this is $850 to $900 worth of insulin.
Yeah, the three.
And you're paying how much?
115. 115.
So a 5-minute walk
$115 for almost
over the border
$900 worth.
saves you
Yeah.
$800 and some odd dollars.
Yes.
Wow.
Rodrigo is an American citizen, but moved to Mexico to run this pharmacy with his family.
There you
What
go.
percentage of people that come in here are American?
Probably the majority. It's ridiculous the amount of people. Like on a Monday, we'll get a good 900 tickets. So
900
that'll come through. I mean,
tickets.
it's too much. We couldn't handle it. The space was too small. That's why we had to open up over here.
So because of the crisis in American healthcare, you're expanding.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
Well, it's great for you.
Yeah, it is. That's why it's so huge, the medical tourism here. Because, you have the border crossing. They opened a lane specifically for medical tourism.
900 tickets. If you do one ticket a minute, holy mackerel. They must be pretty busy. But guys, we're going to have more fun because we're just going to, they actually had to make a new off-ramp so that people could come in, drive in, get their insulin. They have like a fast lane, a fast insulin lane, like a drive-through at McDonald's. So Kurt, number C, please, 28C. Now I think that's D. Is that C or D? Try C.
Opened a lane
There we
specifically
go.
for medical tourism.
Nice catch.
Insulin is cheap in Mexico and Canada because those governments negotiate market access and prices without middlemen. But in the U.S., access to markets are controlled by pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs, who manage drug benefits for insurance companies
Where did we
and
hear
employers.
that before? On the
The
Fox
PBM
News
will allow
clip.
drug companies access to their customers for a price. So drug companies offer PBMs bulk rebates on the price of insulin to sweeten the deal.
Bulk
But instead of these
rebates?
negotiations driving prices down, PBMs and pharmaceutical companies end up wildly inflating insulin list prices because higher prices mean bigger profits for the PBMs
Bigger
and insurance
profits.
companies. Someone ends up pocketing the cash rebates, but a lack of transparency in the system means it's nearly impossible to track down where those savings end up. And it's patients, the one party who has no negotiating power, that ends up paying for this scheme.
So guys, they make the profits from the pain, you know? And the last clip we're going to show you from Vice is where it's actually made. And when you realize the amount of money that can be made from this and the amount of money that they're making, and I tell you guys, you know, I can understand. When you have to lay out the money to build a plant like these guys have done, you know, that's a big expense. But the thing is, it gets to the point where when does the profit stop? You know, how much profit? What kind of a profit margin do you need to have? And do you have to have such a high profit margin that you're exploiting people? But anyway, we're going to take into the plant, and this is the first time virtually anybody's ever got into one. And remember, there's only 3 companies. Well, no, 3 companies make 90% of the insulin. So think about the luck that they have on the market. And they always talk about a free market. Yeah, it's free as long as they benefit from it. But that's why this corporate nonsense has to stop. So Kurt, let's wrap up the Vice part of the show with clip number D, please.
In the U.S., there are only 3 companies that make insulin: Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi. And they make up 90% of the global insulin market. Eli Lilly agreed to let us into their main production facility. The first time, they've allowed an outside camera crew in.
Each person needs one of these gowns.
This looks like a body bag.
The first place we're going to go is the isolation area. This is where we take the fermentation broth from another site, bring it down, and start to separate it.
It takes over 2 months to make a vial of insulin. It's a complicated manufacturing process that Lilly has invested $1.2 billion in since 2012.
So this is where we make insulin. There's 3 main manufacturing plants that are required for every gram of insulin, every vial of insulin that comes out. First is the insulin crystals.
But if you think of this just kind of a mound, I mean, this is millions of dollars worth of product in one of these tanks.
In one of these tanks.
There's,
wow.
you know,
Impressive,
tens of millions of dollars
guys?
every week of insulin being pumped through here and processed.
That's correct.
That's a lot. Eli Lilly says their net price for a box of pens, which includes manufacturing, labor, research and development, regulatory fees, promotional expenses, insulin donations, and profits, is only $122 a box. The list price is $530. It's that difference between the list and net price that's causing problems. What is one of these cost now? One of those guys?
You know, I'm not able to tell you that.
How much does it cost the diabetic? How much would that cost me?
You tell me.
Yeah, well, I have an insurance. If I did, like, just the list price of something like this is how much?
I think when you go and talk to Mike Mason afterwards, they'll talk about the pricing.
Yeah, they cage you about prices. I mean, it's like, what, a couple $100, right?
No, I don't. Again, it depends on what people are paying from an insurance point of view.
In April, Mike Mason, Eli Lilly's senior vice president of insulins and connected care, talked insulin prices before Congress.
For starters, we have not increased the list price on insulin since 2017. But we recognize that the issue is more complex.
But Mason was only willing to talk to us off camera. He says there's not one cause for the high price or one solution. Like other insulin manufacturers, Lilly has various programs to help uninsured patients. In May, the company introduced a generic version of their own insulin at half off the ordinary list price. George Huntley is the former chairman of the board at the American Diabetes Association. He now sits on the National Diabetes Volunteer Leadership Council. How do we fix this?
The way you fix it is to break the system back, tear it apart. Best case, make the whole system illegal and force the discounts to be up front. Then it can be easily passed through and work like everything else in the medical world.
So why doesn't a company like Lilly just back out of this whole arrangement?
You know, the manufacturer, the PBM, the insurance company, they're all on this merry-go-round. Nobody can get off unless the whole thing stops at once and they all get off together. And no single player has the power to do that.
Is what we did illegal?
No. Not technically.
You're such a bad liar. Lauren and I both bought cheap insulin in Mexico. We might have been breaking the law. According to the FDA, in most circumstances, it's illegal for individuals to import drugs into the U.S. for personal use. Though customs will generally allow Americans to bring a 90-day supply of medication back home.
A 90-day supply, okay.
Good haul or not?
Yeah, pretty good.
Would you come back and do this again?
I would come back again.
You would come back again?
I would.
Yeah, okay.
Guys, when you realize how much money they're going to save, they'd be foolish not to come back, right? All right, but anyway, you know, speaking of the money, where does the money go? And we're going to go back. You remember the little clip that we saw in between where they showed the PBS. So we're going to get back to that now with Fox explaining where the money goes with clip number 29, Kurt.
You go to the pharmacy to get a prescription filled. Be careful. If it's after January the 1st, it may cost you more than it did before. That is because nearly 30 drug makers are planning to up their prices come the new year, putting an end to a self-declared halt to price increases that was put in place earlier this year when the companies came under pressure from the Trump administration. We're joined now with everything you need to know about this. Obviously a very important story from the Fox News Medical Aid team, Dr. Mark Siegel. Wow. Boy, what happened here?
Well, first of all, GoodRx has a survey that says 36% of Americans are reporting increases in their drug prices. So the first thing that's happening is, yes, some of the drug makers who were shamed by President Trump into not raising their prices are now doing so. According to the Reuters report, 30 are doing so. But the real headline here, Connell, is that they are still giving rebates, but the rebates are going into the pockets of the middle managers, the pharmacy benefit managers, the insurance companies, who's ever negotiating prices with these drug makers are still getting discounts, but they're not yet being passed along to the consumer.
All right, so guys, it's the pharmacy benefits managers. So these guys have a license to steal. But I'll tell you what, now that we're on to them, you know, I'm sure things are going to start to change. But the next clip is going to be AOC and Cuomo. And this is where they came up with the idea of who sponsored the Meratus Center, the Koch-funded Meratus Center, to do the report on Medicare for All. So, Kurt, let's have clip number 30, please.
And do you want to spend a lot of my tax money on these proposals that you and Bernie and others have? Medicare for all, college tuition, maybe even housing, that the Green New Deal that you have, it is all very expensive, especially on the single payer side, and that it gives people sticker shock. Even in Bernie's home state, they got sticker shock. They couldn't get it done in his state because of how expensive it is. And that was an 11% increase in taxes, 9 to 11%. Even that was too much for people. How do you pay? How do you sell it?
So first of all, the thing that we need to realize is people talk about the sticker shock of Medicare for all. They do not talk about the sticker shock of the cost of our existing system.
There
you know, in
you
a
go.
Koch brothers funded study, if any study is going to try to be a little bit slanted, it would be one funded by the Koch brothers. It shows that Medicare for all is actually much more, is actually much cheaper than the current system that we pay right now.
So guys, you hear something like that, and then you say to yourself, well, that's a bunch of crap. I mean, the Koch brothers wouldn't fund something that would disprove what they're trying to get everybody to believe, would they? But yes, they would. And who picks up the ball at this point? Bernie. And I tell you, once again, Bernie takes no prisoners with clip number 31A.
Let me thank the Koch brothers.
Thanking the Koch brothers
for sponsoring a study that shows
Hard
that
to
Medicare
believe.
for all would save the American people $2 trillion over a 10-year period. I suspect that that is not what the Koch brothers intended to do.
Of course
but that
not.
is what is in the study of the Meratus Center, an organization that is significantly funded by the Koch brothers. At a time when the United States spends far more per capita on healthcare than any other country on earth, almost 18% of our GDP, a Medicare for all healthcare system would save the average family significant sums of money. It will do that by substantially reducing the administrative costs now taking place as a result of the billing, bureaucracy, and insatiable greed within the insurance industry, whose main function in life is not to make people well, but to make stockholders incredibly rich. If we can get rid of the profiteering, the dysfunction, and the incredible waste within the current healthcare system, if we get rid of the advertising and the high-priced compensation packages of healthcare executives, we can save hundreds of billions of dollars each and every year. Medicare for all will also significantly reduce the rapidly escalating and outrageous cost of prescription drugs. Depending on income, an individual may pay a little bit more in taxes to finance Medicare for all, but they will save thousands of dollars each and every year because they will no longer be paying insurance company premiums, deductibles, or co-payments to the private for-profit companies that now run our healthcare system.
Your taxes are gonna go up, but the amount of money that you receive in benefits is going to exceed the amount of money that your taxes are going to go up. So if you were spending, and the next clip I think Bernie says that the average family spends $28,000 a year on health care. If that's the case, you know, so now your expense goes up, but you're going to, instead of spending $28,000, now you're going to get about $32,000 worth of benefits. So actually your cost comes down. But you know, the one thing, you know, in order to make the profits from the insurance companies and the drug companies, what do they have to do? They have to advertise. And guys, I want to tell you, I don't know how many drug ads I hear a night, but I mean, that seems like that's all there is. This one and that one, and I mean, no, there's some things I'm not even aware of, like your toenails. Every night I see, man, I didn't know so many people had bad toenails, but I mean, all the different things. So now people hear this all the time. You know, one time I went into my doctor, and I asked her about, I forget what drug it was. And she goes, you know, Rich, there's one thing I don't like, is when patients come in and tell me what they saw on TV to prescribe for them. She goes, I'm the doctor. I make the decisions. I said, Doc, I'm only telling you what I say. You know, and she goes, I know. She goes, but everybody comes in and tells me. I said, well, it seemed awful good to me, you know, and it looked like it was pointed at me. And guys, I'm in that bracket, so, but anyway, now we're going to have part 2 with Bernie with 31B. So Kurt, and listen, once again, we're going to start off with the cost benefits. So hit it, 31B.
Depending on income, an individual may pay a little bit more in taxes to finance Medicare for all, but they will save thousands of dollars each and every year because they will no longer be paying insurance company premiums, deductibles, or co-payments to the private for-profit companies that now run our healthcare system. Today, under our current dysfunctional healthcare system, believe it or not, it costs more than $28,000 a year to provide health care to the typical family of 4. $28,000 a year. Those costs will go down, not up, under a Medicare for all system. Here is the bottom line. If every major country on earth can guarantee health care to all and achieve better health care outcomes while spending substantially less per capita than we do, please do not tell me that the United States of America cannot do the same. Needless to say, there is huge opposition to this legislation from the powerful special interests that profit from the current wasteful healthcare system we have today. The insurance companies, the drug companies, Wall Street, and the Koch brothers are devoting a lot of money to lobbying, campaign contributions, and television ads to defeat this proposal. But they are on the wrong side of history. Guaranteeing health care as a right is important to the American people, not just from a moral and financial perspective. It also happens to be what the majority of the American people want. In the last poll that I saw, 63% of Americans now support moving to a Medicare for all system. The time is long overdue for the United States to join every other industrialized country and guarantee health care to all in a cost-effective manner. And that is what Medicare for all is about. Thank you.
Where we started, you know, and Uncle Joey, I didn't have to play what Elizabeth Warren said. I didn't have to play what Bernie Sanders said. All I had to do was show what the Koch brothers found. And when you find out the guys that bought the government had a study done that proved Medicare for all is better for everybody, you'll listen to them, won't you, Joe? I mean, when they tell you climate change is a hoax, you believe them then, right? And when they tell you all this other nonsense, you buy all that stuff. And people like Kenny Johnson, him and his deep state stuff, and all this nonsense he comes up with. And I said, Kenny, I really got into the idea of the sex slaves in the pizza place. These new conspiracies just aren't floating my boat, you know? So guys, I want to thank Kurt. I tell you, things are going relatively well. It's pretty smooth. And who knows what's going to happen. But with next week with Trump in office, who knows what we can expect. So anyway, want to thank Candy and Dave and everybody involved. And we'll see you next week, guys. Take care.